I'm here today with Arthur Kerkstra of Hudsonville, Michigan. The interviewer is Adam Jones of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project, and today's date is July 14th, 2015. Now, Mr. Kerkstra, if we could begin with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Grand Rapids, 1924.
Okay. And then, did you grow up in Grand Rapids?
Yes.
All right. And what did your parents do for a living?
What did your parents do
Yep.
for a living?
Yes.
My father was a gardener.
Oh, okay. And then did you have any siblings?
Oh yeah, I had 4 sisters.
Okay. Um, Now, how was life during the Great Depression for you guys?
Well, I don't remember too much of that, but it was tough.
Yeah. Did your father have steady work during the Depression?
No, he worked all the time during the Depression.
Okay.
We had one uncle that worked at Hart Mirror, and he was on relief,
Yeah.
and he was kind of ashamed of that when he went down because they handed out, food
Right.
2 blocks from our house. They were down on Hall Street.
Okay.
So my dad had to drive him home, after he picked up the
Yeah.
Didn't want people to see that.
Right. And then did you attend high school?
Yeah, I went to Ottawa Hills first,
Okay.
then we transferred over to Davis Tech
Okay.
to play basketball over
Oh, okay.
there. Okay?
And it says here that you graduated from Davis Tech in
1943.
Okay.
We had a special graduation in March of 43 because there was 23 of us going in the Army at
Okay.
that time. So they had a special graduation for us, and we all left at that time.
Okay. Um, Now, before you graduate, Pearl Harbor happens. What do you remember about the attack on Pearl Harbor?
What do you remember about what?
What do you remember about Pearl Harbor? Like, when did you hear about Pearl Harbor?
Oh, well, the thing that I remember is the fella coming down the street hollering extra, extra. At that time, we didn't have the communication you have today,
Right.
but they had it in the paper. You could buy one of those papers, see, and in that paper was they bombed Pearl Harbor, and that started World War II.
Yeah. Now, had you been keeping up with the news coming out of Europe and Asia prior to Pearl Harbor?
Have I?
Well, had you been keeping up with the news about the Nazis or Japan prior to prior to Pearl Harbor?
Prior to that?
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay. So this came as a real shock to you.
Good.
Yeah.
He was
Um,
interested in track.
Yeah, right.
all right. So Pearl Harbor happens. Now, was your immediate reaction to go enlist, or were you thinking more about waiting to be drafted?
Well, I wanted to enlist, but my father wouldn't let me. I wanted to go into the Navy,
Okay.
but my father said, no, you can't swim. So, he said, we'll see what happens. Well, what happens? I got drafted,
Yeah. Did you think that the war would be over before you got drafted, or did you think that this was going to be a pretty long thing?
I didn't have any idea, I knew it was quite a war. And it was, going on in the Pacific. been going on in Europe.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought at any time it would end, but it didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Not until we invaded it.
Yeah. Okay, so you get drafted in March of '43.
Yeah.
Now what's the first step in that? Like where do you report for for the process of getting inducted?
So,
Where did you report first after getting drafted?
I would say we left Grand Rapids, you know, and we ended up at Camp Butner, North Carolina,
Okay.
and that's where I had my basic training.
Okay.
Okay.
Now in basic training, did you kind of know, or did you have an idea of what to expect?
No.
No. So this all this all came as a huge shock to you.
Right.
Okay. How were you received by the drill sergeants?
By the drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Oh, I would say pretty good, I guess. We had one sergeant, Sergeant Peters. He was there, an old army man.
Okay.
He'd been in there for years. You know, we got along with him real well. So,
Good. Now, what was the emphasis in basic training? A lot of marching, following orders.
oh yeah, we
Yeah.
went on. Well, first of all, we had a dugout that was in the ground, 4 foot in, and then we had to go in there and fight,
Okay. Like hand to hand.
hand to hand.
Really? Okay.
That was toughened us up a little bit.
Okay.
And then on certain days, we went on to outside of the camp, and they, I guess, what they call it? Drill?
Maneuvers.
Huh?
Maneuvers.
No, when we went on walks.
Hikes,
Hikes.
Yeah.
like bivouac.
Like 25-mile hikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
First of all, there were 4 miles, and then they extended it to 12 miles, and finally it was 25 miles, full pack, you know.
And how much did a pack weigh?
So it weighed 80 pounds.
Wow. All right, and then did you also get any weapons training during basic training?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We went on with an M1 rifle,
Okay, so you switched over from the 19.
Yeah.
Yep.
and we went on the rifle range,
Okay.
and we shot on the rifle range.
Now, had you ever handled a gun before, or was this the first time?
This is the first time I ever handled a gun. Yeah.
Okay. How'd that go for you?
What?
How'd it go for you?
Well, a little awkward at first, you know,
Yeah.
but I ended up a sharpshooter.
There you go.
Yeah. And then I transferred out of that into a mortar squad,
Okay.
and then we trained in a mortar squad, you know.
Now, was the mortar training also at Camp Butner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the audience viewing, what does mortar training consist of?
So, well, you had to carry the ammunition, and we had certain fellows that carried the ammunition that were in back of us. But you had to carry the gun, and you had to assemble that gun, because it was a part when you carried it, otherwise it'd be too heavy.
Right.
Then we learned to shoot with that gun. So first of all, you'd shoot over, and then under, and then on the target.
Okay, so you're kind of
Yeah.
working your way in, kind of
Right.
bracketing the target
Right.
till you get it. Okay. Now, how did you adjust to Army living?
I think I adjusted real well, you know.
Okay.
At first it was a little nerve-wracking, but, and different. Yeah, a little homesick at first,
Yeah.
but I adjusted to that.
You'd never been away from home
No.
prior to that.
No.
Oh, okay. Now, okay, so was mortar training kind of wrapped into basic training, or was that a separate?
No, it was wrapped into basic training.
Okay. Okay, and how long did that time at Camp Butner last?
About a year.
Okay. Okay, so now your basic training lasted maybe about 2 months, right? So what were you doing at Camp Butner after basic training? Oh.
Waiting to get shipped out.
Okay, so just waiting and doing more training. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And at this time you're part of the 78th Infantry Division?
Yeah.
All right. Now, so a year passes, it's now spring-ish of 1944, and you receive orders to go overseas. What's the process of getting you overseas?
So, well, we shipped to Boston.
Okay.
And we shipped down to Boston.
Okay. Now, did you board a Liberty ship or a converted cruise liner?
It was a Liberty ship.
All right.
It held 2,000 men, but anyway, it was a Liberty ship.
Yeah.
Because that's all they had, you know. And then we went over with a whole pile of ships, you know.
Okay.
It was a convoy.
Yep.
And we had destroyers running up and on the sides of us, protecting that.
Yeah.
So nobody would, you know, get in there and blow up a ship.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any U-boat scares?
Not really, no.
No? Okay. Now, how was the voyage for you? Did you get seasick?
Yeah, I got, well, I thought I was seasick, you know, and I went down to the dispensary and they said, you go back to your bunk, you know, you're seasick. Yeah.
Okay.
And I went back and I laid on that bed and oh man, I had that side was hurting on me, you know.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm gonna go back there, you know, tell them.
Yeah.
So I went back there and they said, well, okay, get on this platform here, we'll look you over. So they looked me over. And they said, no, I don't think you have appendicitis too. I think you're seasick, but so you can get up. So I got up and I fainted, you know. Whoa. And they hauled me back on that slab of wood, you know, and took out my appendix from there.
Okay. And you're telling me a little bit about, or your wife was telling me a little bit about before the interview that they actually had to strap you down to the table and strap the doctor to the table too.
Right.
Because of the
Because
rolling of the ship.
Yeah, the roll of the ship, right. Yeah. So,
And you're 18 years old.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so you have your appendix removed, and now were you conscious when you guys arrived in England?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you had enough time to kind of recover a little bit before you landed.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you arrived in England?
Yeah. I was in northern England. What was that town?
Let's see. There's. Well, if it was Scotland, it might have been. I think it's pronounced like Greenock. There's Greenock, Scotland. I think it was a major port of entry. Then maybe Liverpool.
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Okay.
Yeah. That's where I got off the ship.
Okay.
Okay, I got off but I couldn't walk yet.
He was carried off.
At that time, you know, you have appendix out today and you're walking the next day. They held us down for, I think, 11 days, you know.
Okay.
So we got to the port, and then they hauled us off on stretchers, you know.
Okay.
They sent us to a hospital, and there we lay.
Okay. Now, so you get sent to the hospital, and the rest of your unit is the rest of your unit moving on without you at this point?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you recover. Now, what happens to you after you recover?
After well, when we were in the hospital, you could hear the planes, you know, because the invasion had started at that time.
Okay.
And we didn't know that was the invasion. Didn't have any idea. But we surmised that's what it was, because you could hear planes all night long, you know.
Just one after the other taking off.
And they'd take off in waves, you know, and they'd come back in waves. So we figured that was the invasion, you know, the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Because we knew sooner or later we were going to do that. And that's what happened.
Yeah. Now, what was the feeling in the hospital knowing that we were finally launching our invasion of Fortress Europe?
Well, I don't know what the hospital was thinking at that time, except to get these men out of here, you know. Their replacements, they need them over there, you know.
Yeah. So there's definitely a feeling that, okay, we're gonna need more men as soon as this gets going.
Yeah.
How long were you in the hospital there?
Not very long.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Okay. So your unit goes on ahead of you, and you go to the hospital. Now it says on your bio sheet that you joined the 4th Infantry Division.
Right.
And by this point you said they were already in France.
Right.
So this is a little bit after D-Day, but not too long after. What's the process of getting you from England to the 4th Infantry?
They put us on these ships, you know. I don't know what they call them
Like an LST?
now. LST, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And they shipped us out of the southern part of England, over the English Channel.
Okay.
And then they dropped us off in the water, and you had to make your way to the shore. And the funny thing is that you trained in the United States with a gas mask, and you were told wherever you go, you got to have that gas mask with you. Well, that's the first thing I saw laying on the beach, just a big pile of gas masks. You know?
So why was that? Was it because guys pretty quickly figured out that the Germans aren't going to use gas on us? Okay.
The officials did, and you were told.
That they don't have mustard gas or anything like that.
No.
Okay. Now you do land at which beach did you land at? Do you remember?
What?
Which beach did you land at? Do you remember?
Oh, no. Omaha, I think.
Okay.
Omaha Beach.
Now this is only maybe a week or so after the invasion happened. What does Omaha Beach look like?
So, well, it was a huge hill, you know. And you had to, the guys, at first, when they first landed there, they had to go up that beach. There was bunkers in there, you know,
Yep.
cement bunkers. And that's what they were shooting from, you know. And as you got off these LSTs, they'd open up fire on you,
Yeah.
and there were bodies laying in the water and whatnot, that were wounded, that were killed. It was a mess. And even as they got on shore, they'd hide behind some body, that couldn't move anymore. No
Yeah.
protection.
Okay. Now, was there still a lot of debris on the beach when you arrived?
So, no, not too much.
Not too much. Okay. So you unload on Omaha Beach. Now, at this time, where is the 4th Infantry Division? Are they more inland by now?
Well, they were trying to get into France,
Okay.
as far as they could go.
Right.
Catch up with the paratroopers that had jumped behind the lines,
Yeah.
And so they were trying to catch up with them. Well, then we ran into St. Lo, and then we had to take care of that situation first.
Okay.
After that, we had all those hedgerows in France to overcome,
Okay. Now, you were telling me a little bit about the Battle of St. Lo before the interview began. Would you mind talking about that again?
Yeah. Well, the Germans all retreated, and they ended up at St. Lo, and there was 80,000, they figured 80,000 of Germans there. And finally we got them all surrounded, They were trying to get out and whatnot, and they couldn't, and we'd shoot them. And finally they gave up, 1, 2 at a time, or 20 at a time, whatever. We didn't know what to do with them, at that time. So we shipped them back, and I don't know who took care of them, but anyway, they took care of them back of us.
Okay. And you were saying, I think you said something, or your wife said something, that with your mortar crew, that you were firing so many mortars that the tube was red hot.
The tube was red hot, We didn't dare drop any more shells in there, so we had to get a new one.
Okay. Now, did you guys take any losses during the battle, or was it pretty one-sided? Did you take any losses?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Honey,
What?
isn't that where you had to go back and get more troops?
So, no, not here, not at St. Lo. That was the battle in Hurtgen Forest.
Okay. So you make it through St. Lo, and then you said you started to advance through the hedgerows?
Right.
Okay.
We were fighting, one hedgerow at a time.
Okay. How much ground would you cover going through the hedgerows in a day? I mean, 100 yards, something like that?
Yeah, I really don't know. At one time, we had to move back, And other times you were gaining on it, so.
Okay.
In the long run, we gained on it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was much more slow going
Yeah.
because of having to fight through the hedgerows. Now moving through France, did you notice if you were going up against, were you going up against well-trained German soldiers, or were they kind of more like conscripts?
Well, at times they were well-trained German soldiers. Other times you just had a sniper here or there,
Okay.
and you had to watch out for them. And they were in buildings up high, in buildings, and shooting down at you. So we had to get them out of there. you know, before we could move it.
Yeah. Did you guys have any kind of like tank support with you as you were advancing?
So, well, not at first, because we couldn't get the tanks on there, you know.
Right.
But later on, yes, we had
Okay.
tank support.
Okay. So you're moving through France. It's like summer, getting into late summer of 1944 by this time. And then eventually Paris is liberated in August.
Right, we actually liberated Paris, the 4th Infantry Division.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had to wait 4 hours for Patton to come through, because he had to go through first.
Right. What did you guys think about Patton?
He's a pretty strong guy, had good military training, but he was tough. He's a tough old bird.
So after Patton does arrive and goes into Paris first, and so you guys go into Paris after him.
Yep.
What was Paris like after being liberated?
Oh, well, we were riding on the back of tanks at that time. And people were throwing us bottles of wine and whatnot, you know. And we'd put them in the tank in the bottom. You know.
Okay.
So, and then we ended up in the dump, and that's where we stayed that night.
But hon,
What?
when you were going through there, you stopped and then a little girl gave you a pin.
No, that was a little later on.
Oh,
Okay? And then the next morning, the mayor of the town was out there, and if you wanted to, he'd pour you a little shot in your coffee in the morning.
So people were definitely grateful.
What?
People were definitely grateful.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man, they were joyous, yeah. They were happy that we were there, you know, to liberate them.
Yeah. Did you encounter any of the Free French forces under de Gaulle?
No,
No.
no,
They were kind of in their own
yeah.
part, doing their own thing. Okay. So after you liberate Paris, where do you go next?
But then we had to cross the Seine River,
Okay.
and they blew out the bridges there, you know.
Yeah.
So we had to wait until the engineers put up a temporary bridge for us.
Okay.
In other words, some of us went across on boats, you know.
Okay.
Okay. And then they finally got some transportation for them. They built some bridges, and away we went.
Okay. Now, were you advancing across France? Were you kind of going just directly west, or were you kind of moving on a northwest?
Northwest, I guess.
Northwest. Okay. And as you're advancing across France after Paris, are you still encountering a lot of resistance from the Germans?
Now and then, yeah.
Now and then?
Now and then.
So there are little pockets left over.
Little pockets here and there, you know.
Okay.
So that held us up, you know. We couldn't just walk straight through on a line, you know.
Yeah.
And no resistance, nothing like that.
Okay.
We had to wait as send our scouts out ahead to see what was ahead, you know.
Right. At this point, was it mostly just German ground troops, or did they still have tanks and artillery backing them up?
Well, once in a while you'd run into the elite, and they had tanks with them, you know.
Okay, so SS units and things like that.
But I think we knocked them out. you know, on our way.
Okay. Okay, so you move through France, and then it starts to get into fall, and it said on your bio sheet that you got up into Belgium.
Yeah.
Around what time did you arrive in Belgium?
At what time?
Well, like what
Time
time?
of the year.
Time of the year.
Oh, it was getting late. It was in the fall
Okay.
when we got there,
Okay.
and it was starting to get cold, you know.
Yeah. All right. So you get into Now, was there any German resistance in Belgium, or were you guys kind of able to just go right into the country?
No, there was lots of backup, or not backup, but there's resistance there, you know. I don't know how much. When you say that, you say we just couldn't move straight forward, you know.
Right. Right. There was still.
That was impossible to do.
Yeah. Okay. So you get into Belgium, and then you said you got into the Hurtgen Forest in Germany.
In Germany,
And that was prior to the Battle of the Bulge, you said, right?
yes.
Okay. So it's like November, early December 1944.
Yeah. It
Okay.
was November, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Because I was wounded the 30th.
No, the 29th or 28th, because
Okay.
you don't, there's nothing on any of his records that there was a 30th in November. And they never realized that until, well, I guess you were getting out. And then they said, well, where were you on the 30th? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And they never did find him. So
Okay.
he must have been in he was in the hospital somewhere.
Right. In transition.
Yeah.
Now, before you got wounded, you mentioned that in the Hurtgen Forest that you guys came up against so much resistance that you had to go back and get replacements. And then you said that men got killed just trying to get back to the front line. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
What?
About the replacements that are being carried back, they're being brought back to the Hurtgen Forest, and then you lost half of them
Yeah.
on the way in.
Right.
Right. So, okay, so I guess the front line was still pretty porous at the time, right?
Yeah.
That there wasn't really, okay. But you do get set up in the Hurtgen Forest, and before you get wounded, what are you guys doing there?
Eating.
Okay.
No. Hey, that was quite a battle there. And we lost a lot of men there. That's why we had to go back and get replacements. We ended up on the front, being the riflemen on the front instead of in the mortar squad.
Okay.
Okay. And that's why we had to go back and get the replacements that were going to be the front line. But it didn't work out that way, you know. And I don't know what happened after that. I got wounded at that time.
Okay.
So,
Now you mentioned before the interview the circumstances that led to you getting wounded, but would you mind talking again about how that happened?
how did it happen?
Yeah.
I don't really know how to answer that. We dug a big hole, you know, big foxhole. And I think we were there for 3 or 4 days. And we lived in that foxhole, waiting. The Germans were trying to come up on the one side of us, you know.
Okay.
And we were trying to fight them off. They tried to cut us off. In fact, I think they cut us off for 2 days.
Oh wow.
And, but finally the flanks moved up on the sides of us and moved them out of there, so.
Okay.
But then we were at the end of the Hurtgen Forest. We had gone through the whole forest. And we were at the end, we could see where we dug our hole was up on a hill. And we could look down on the town.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you said that. Well, actually, one quick thing. What town were you near?
I don't know.
Just some German town. All right.
A small German town.
Oh, okay. And then you said that your foxhole took a direct artillery hit.
Yeah, every day we'd dig it a little deeper. And we had these big logs from the trees, and they were over the top.
Okay.
And on the top of that, we had piled sand, you know, from the hole.
Right.
So we had quite a foxhole there. We thought it was pretty safe, you know.
Yeah. And you mentioned before that you guys would kind of like rotate in the foxhole,
Right.
because the one position with your back up, kind of with your back to the front line, that there's more protection that way.
Yeah, a little
Li-
a little protection.
Little more
you know.
protection.
They thought.
Yeah.
At least it saved my life, you know.
Yeah. So you said that the shell hit your foxhole, and one of the men in the foxhole was killed instantly, like you
He
said.
doesn't know.
I-
Oh, it doesn't. You don't know.
I think so, but I'm not sure. You know, the third man.
Yeah.
Leo, my friend, we went to the first aid stations, you know, together. But somewhere along the line, we left him, you know,
Yeah.
and he died.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you get wounded, and then they move you. The first stop is probably an aid station in France somewhere, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't too far in the background from us, our first aid station.
Yeah.
And then you move from that one to another one, you know.
Okay.
They're all in France.
Okay. How long did you spend at each aid station? Just about like a couple weeks at each one, or a couple days?
Couple days at the most, you know.
Right.
I really don't know.
Okay. So they stabilize you and they start moving you back across France. Now, are your wounds severe enough that you have to go back to England, or do they patch you up and then send you right back to the front line?
No, they drove us in an ambulance to France,
Okay.
and then I went to a general hospital there in France,
Okay.
and then I asked for a doctor or a minister, because I thought I was going to die there, and they sent a priest there, so he was going to perform the last
That's right.
rites
Yeah.
there. And I told him that I was not a Catholic at all, he said. So he left, and then after that, I guess I withered that sore. And then we took the plane to England.
Okay.
And they operated on my both legs, I guess, to get some shrapnel out. And they put me in traction at that time. And traction consisted of drill through here, through the bone here,
Okay.
and then with wires, it went back to number one. And that's where they hung on a rope. They hung the weights, and that was pulling stretching the leg back, you know.
Okay.
So it'd go back in place.
Okay. Now, how long did you spend in England?
3 months.
3 months.
Mhm.
Okay, so by the time you're done in England, it's what, like February 45?
Yeah, that could be.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. February, March. Now from England, where do you go?
Back to the United States.
Okay.
Okay?
You
Okay.
carried them on the ship and carried them off.
Yeah.
All right.
And then when we came to New York Harbor, they said everybody's gonna see the Statue of Liberty. So they carried me out on the stretcher and I could see the Statue of Liberty. That was nice.
Yeah. All right. So. Okay, so you get back to New York Harbor. They unload you in New York. Now, where do you go next?
Put us on a train and ended up in Battle Creek.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. So you're in a hospital in Battle Creek then?
Yeah.
Okay. How long did you wind up spending there?
How long?
Yeah.
I'd say 15, 16 months.
Okay. Now what were they doing in the hospital? Just kind of like physical therapy and getting you back to.
Well, no, my legs were both in a cast up to my hips.
Okay.
Okay. So I laid that way for quite a while. Finally, they took off that one cast. And finally, then a couple months later, they took the other one off. And then I could dangle my feet, I could sit up and dangle my feet, you know, across on the floor.
Okay.
And it took months before I could walk.
Okay. Now, while you were at Battle Creek, were your parents able to come down and visit?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, in the span of time that you were at Battle Creek, the Germans surrendered in May. What was everyone's reaction to Germany surrendering?
Well, that was, I couldn't believe it, you know. It was all of a sudden the war was over, you know. And the Germans actually gave up after the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
So,
And at that point, it was a matter.
well, that was a joyous occasion, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then just a few months later, in August, Japan surrenders, and the war is really over. What were people's reaction to the war being completely over?
Well, you saw the pictures in the paper.
Oh, yeah.
He probably didn't, he was too young.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, no, yeah. But I mean, like, what? Just celebration.
People were just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just a teenage girl, and we went downtown, and everybody was running up and down the streets, and no cars could even go because it was just full of people, and everybody was hugging everybody and kissing everybody, and it was just real. You couldn't
Joyous
believe
occasion, you know.
how
Yeah.
joyous people were.
Right. That this is finally over.
Yeah.
That we can kind of go back to normal.
Well, and I don't know if you know, but in Grand Rapids they had what they call the photo reporter, and it was a movie theater, and it was on Pearl Street, just
Oh,
off
okay.
from Monroe,
Oh yeah.
and you could go there all the time and see the war. That's all they showed there was what was going on with the war.
Okay.
So we would go there, I don't know how often, every once in a while, and then we'd sit and watch it. You just couldn't believe what you were seeing. You know, America had never experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
And all these, I mean, you know, it wasn't like here now, not saying this wasn't bad, but you get a couple of them.
Yeah.
Well, then there were thousands at a time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just, that's all you thought about, that's all. I mean, like he said they ate, but that's his main thing in life is to eat.
Actually, that's a little sidebar we could do. Like, what were living conditions like when you were in Europe? Like, what was the food like? What were sleeping conditions like?
Well, it was all army stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And food was good. Bad sometimes.
Were you you were close to the front line, so you guys had to eat rations, right?
Well, we did when we were out in the field, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When we couldn't bring the trucks up with the food, then we'd have rations, yeah.
Oh, okay. And then now when you were in the field, you said you had to sleep in foxholes and things like that. When you were in the rear, were you ever able to sleep in houses that had been taken over, buildings, at least? No.
Oh, some guys did, I guess. That didn't appeal to me at all.
Okay.
Okay.
And then while you're in Europe, like how much were you able to keep in contact? There you go. With your parents? Was mail pretty frequent, or did it kind of?
Well, it was hard to write letters, you know.
Yeah.
His mother wasn't well, so he was always afraid to say too much to upset her.
Oh, okay.
And like when the first time they came in the room, the first thing she did was feel if he had legs, because she was sure his legs were gone, because she knew he was shot from his waist. You know,
Yeah.
he still has like 200 pieces of shrapnel in his body.
Oh man.
When we went on airplanes, he always had a card that he had to show him, because he would set the machines off at the airport.
Right.
So it was always, and one of his sister's husbands was in too, but he wasn't in combat. And I talk for him a lot because he doesn't hear, and through the years I've learned that if he gets stuck, I have to talk. Right, Art?
Yeah.
And then another thing too, kind of as part of that sidebar, did you, outside of Paris, how much interaction did you have with civilians?
Oh, very little.
Very little.
Yeah. Very little. We had, once in a while, we'd go through town and they'd open up to us, you know.
Okay.
And like the wife said that one time a little girl ran up to me and she gave me a pen, you know, and I still have the pen.
I can't show it to you because we made a board, a frame, and it's got all his stuff on it.
Oh, okay.
But he
I took that all
something off
apart.
from it. And now our daughter's getting it fixed, and she said the other day it was done, and she'll bring it tonight.
Oh, okay.
She's coming tonight.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so jumping back to the war's over, and you're in Battle Creek recovering. Now, it said that you got discharged in April of 1946. Now, so the rest of your time was spent in the hospital.
Right.
Right. Okay. And what was it? Basically, just kind of like convalescent leave, just well, not leave, but physical
Well,
therapy.
He didn't walk for so much of the time.
Right, that you.
And then he was on crutches. When I met him, he was on crutches.
Oh, okay.
And that was in January of 45, Art.
Yeah, we could go home weekends, you know,
Oh,
from the
okay.
hospital. In fact, they encouraged.
Not first, but
No, not at first. Later on. And then they encouraged that, you know. So you
Oh, okay.
walk and, you know, get better that way.
You kind of get back into civilian.
Circulation,
Yeah.
be with people.
Yeah. So you guys met in January, probably 46? January 46?
So,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay, so you guys met before you were out of the service.
Yeah.
just he was in from January till April.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he came home.
So you finally do heal up. Where did they send you to get discharged?
Right there at Battle Creek.
Right there at Fort Custer
Yep.
in April of 1946. Okay. So you get discharged, and you go back home. So what was it like to finally be out and be back home?
Well, as my wife said, after we met and we wanted to get married, well, her mother wanted us to wait a year.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, when he came home, he weighed,
98 pounds.
Oh, wow.
and my mother was a little concerned about that, and rightly so.
Yeah.
And she said, well, because we met in January and he got out in March and he gave me a diamond in March. And then we wanted to get married that summer. And then my mother said, my father had just died the year before.
Oh,
And then my mother said, well, would you please wait a year till he gets a job, gets a little established?
yeah.
And so we agreed, and we did. We waited until June the next year.
Oh, okay. Till June 1947 is when you guys get married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you do come home. You have a life to live, and do you go back to work, or do you go to college?
No. Well, I took some courses from the University of Michigan
At
Oh,
night.
okay.
at night.
Oh, okay. Using the GI Bill.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And,
We got a job right away.
yeah, I got a job right away at the American Boxboard.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I was a timekeeper as people were doing their things or on a time.
Oh,
They
okay.
could put so much in the machine and it'd take them so much time. And, you know, I had to keep track of all that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
This is all way before computers and things.
oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Actually, have to have a person doing that.
It was all pen and pencil then.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's see. And then do you stay with that job as your career, or do you move on to something else?
No, I moved off that job. I wanted to get into sales.
Okay.
Okay.
But then we were already married.
Oh, okay. So
We
this
were
is-
already
We
married.
stayed at the Boxport for a few years.
But the trouble is, I was sitting at the window every night listening to German planes coming. In other words, I had PTSD.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Many's a night we sat at the bedroom window with it open and hear those planes. There are no planes. But I hear them, I know them, but there aren't any. And
Okay.
I don't know, we even had children and we did that.
Yeah.
That lasted that long.
Yep.
And our first daughter was born after we were married a year, and then 2 years later we had our second, and we still did it.
Yeah.
But finally,
And then Leo's folks called. They were from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
They wanted to come up and talk to me. So they came up and We talked for quite a while.
That was awful.
Oh, she was
That was their
nervous.
only child,
Oh, wow.
and she had a regular handkerchief, and by the time she left our house, that hanky was in shreds on her lap.
Oh, man.
That poor lady was so nervous. And then you'd been out, well, a year, about. They had written, and then you had written back to them, and we corresponded with them for a few years, and
Yeah.
they always wanted us to come and visit, but
Leo and I were sitting in a foxhole one time. We had our guns with us. We were pointing at our toes. So, if we blow off our toes, we can get out of here. So,
Well,
they
but
decided
we were
not
kidding.
to.
What?
But they decided not to.
don't want to fake the $1 million wound.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, kind of as a final question, I'd like to ask is, when you look back on your time in the Army and your time in the war, what are some things that you took away from your service?
To be quiet and not talk.
Oh, not much.
Not much?
No.
No.
It was a time of sickness, and I got carried on the plane and off the plane, on the boat. You know, but I was carried all the time. You
Yeah.
know. So
And he couldn't talk about it for years.
no.
Our kids are learning more the last couple of years than what they ever knew before. And this going on this trip has really been good for you,
Yeah, it's opened things up.
Yeah.
that he can talk. He
Talk
talked
about it.
to me about it. I found out a lot of it when we were sitting by the window listening for the return.
Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, I can pause. We're just picking up where we left off with some reflections on service. Then I'm going to ask, you went on the honor flight in May of 2015?
May 16th.
May 16th of 2015. All right. And you're just kind of telling a little bit about that and how much you enjoyed that.
Oh, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I would advise it to anybody to do.
Well, you have,
What?
because there's a couple men here that weren't in the battle. They were in the service, but they never fought. They never had to go.
Right.
And the
Well, they
ones-
thought,
they didn't deserve to go, and then I said,
Right.
well, it is so worthwhile, because
Everyone
Yeah.
is encouraged to go.
but for him, it was really super.
really neat, yeah.
Good. Good to hear it. Well, that actually pretty much runs out the entire tape.
Okay,
So I wanted to thank you for the interview
okay,
and for your service as well.
all right, thank you.